Everyone, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the November 9th, 2021 City Council meeting of Daytona Beach Shores. Sherry, please take a roll.
Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Here.
Councilmember Frizzlone?
Here.
Councilmember Plais?
Here.
Thank you very much. Reverend Bob, could you please lead us in prayer?
Yes, I invite you to stand as you're able as we pray together. God of creation, creator of all things, we come before you tonight awed by the strength and the power of your creation that we experienced last weekend. And we also give you thanks for protecting our city. But we lift to you those who weren't as fortunate, who sustained damage, or who were at least traumatized by the mighty and fierce storm. We ask that you would comfort their souls and their spirits and bring them to a place where they can recover and rebuild. We ask that you would be with us this evening and this week as we look forward to the celebration of Veterans Day and receive our grateful thanks and heartfelt thanks for those who have given their lives in portion or in full to the protection of our freedoms that we enjoy in this country. May we honor them with our hearts, but may we also honor them as we seek to protect in our own ways the freedom, the liberty, and the justice for all that we value so much in this country. We ask that you would bring your wisdom and guidance to our elected officials, that you would bring encouragement to the staff and the workers of this city, and that you will bring us closer together as neighbors and friends, those of us who live in this place and work here as well. We thank you, and we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Vice Mayor, since you're our only veteran, I believe, on the dais, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure will. Please, I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing, Vice Mayor. As I say, anyone here that is a veteran, please remain standing. We'd like to congratulate you for your service for our country. Also, I want to introduce one of our guests that I just made in the back. I'm going to put him on the spot. So I asked him who he was, and you're the mayor of what city again?
International Falls, Minnesota.
Okay, and your name?
Harley Droba.
Thank you, Harley, very much for being here this evening. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Minnesota? Minnesota?
Yes, yeah, Minnesota. We have no presentations or public notices tonight. We are going to ask you for approval of minutes, and I want you to pull out the amended minutes from City Council meeting. And do we have to call out, John, what the one amendment is, or just ask for the?
Just with the consent of the council that you'll substitute the amended minutes.
Okay, all right, so
so move.
all right, thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, if not, Sharon, can you take a roll?
Yes, ma'am. Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzlone?
Yes.
Councilmember Plais?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Okay, under our consent agenda, we have 3 items. If there's nothing that needs to be pulled, I'll ask for a motion to accept as is.
Motion to accept as is.
I'll second.
Michael.
Any discussion on any of the items? Okay, if not, let's go on to the, I'm sorry, yes. I'm moving right along here. Please take a roll, Sherry.
Councilmember Frizzlone?
Yes.
Councilmember Plais?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you so much. All right, now we'll go on to the report of our city attorney. Frankie, what do you have for us this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. The past couple of weeks, we've worked on a sign ordinance variance, where we advise staff as to the provision related to the sign code. We also had a different sign code issue, that we advised staff on. We had a variance for, issue with the stormwater code, that we researched and advised staff on.
Attorney Carey, I don't want to interrupt you, but I've asked that back row if they can't hear to give me a little ear, and I got a little ear, so,
I'll
okay?
speak a little closer to the microphone.
All right, is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. We had an interpretation of the PUD code that involved some research and advice to staff. And we've had a conference with legal counsel for the Treasure Island property relating to the development agreement. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, I'd like you to explain, and then maybe Stuart, if you can come up as well. So right now, can you tell us where we are, that we did receive something from the state? It just had 2 tiny little changes, I consider tiny. So then what is next step? Do they come to the city? Because everyone's going to be asking us questions. So if you can do a high-level overview where we are and next steps, please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council members. So the city did receive official comments from the VGMC. They have certified the comprehensive plan amendment for the Treasure Island comprehensive plan amendment. So they're good to go. And also, we received comments from the state. There were 2 minor comments. We don't have to necessarily address those comments at this time, or even if we want to. But I think John Kerry has something that he wants to add. He had conversation with Rob Merrill, who's the attorney for Treasure Island today.
Yes, since we spoke this morning, Mayor, I've talked to Rob Merrill, who, as Stuart said, is the counsel for Treasure Island, regarding this. And there are 2 minor notations that DEO noted, one of which had to do with the wording of the private property rights element, which the wording we took straight from the statute, so I'm not sure exactly why DEO would be fussing about that. The other one had to do with a map amendment that they recommend. The city has the option of either changing addressing their comments or not addressing their comments. It's not a mandatory issue that we deal with at this time. We're going to have a conference with Stuart and Rob and Jessica tomorrow regarding what we want to do moving forward to ensure that and we're going to try to talk to DEO, the analyst who drafted the comments, to see, what the best way to move forward is. But the bottom line is that there was nothing serious in the comments that would require us to go back to the drawing board. We can move forward, and Rob has indicated to me that the developer will be prepared to present us with a draft development agreement next week, so that we can bring it to the Planning and Zoning Board in December, and then for your all approval. That will take 2 readings because we enacted development order with an ordinance, but at least the first reading hopefully in December.
Okay, thank you. And the conversation that you're going to have with Rob and Jessica, is that specific just to those 2 comments from the state? It will not entail anything else?
We'll also find out just about timelines for the development agreement that they're proposing. So those are the 2 planned items.
Okay, thank you. So, just give us a rough timeline, at best case, if, they do present to us in the 30 days. And then I think what most people are interested in is that 120-day ticking clock.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So best case and the way that I would recommend that we move forward is to go ahead and adopt the comprehensive plan amendment as quickly as possible, which could be in December. It all depends on how the conversation goes tomorrow, and obviously consulting with the city manager as well as to how to move forward. But, best case scenario, adopt the comprehensive plan amendment in December. They will submit their development agreement by the end of next week, from my understanding, and it goes to P&Z in December for a review, a recommendation, and then in January and February, assuming that everything's perfect and that there's no additional curveballs being thrown in there, theoretically, we could have everything adopted by February. That's the best case scenario.
Okay, so could we do first and second reading? And we're going to have 2 meetings in January,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Could we do those in January and be ready in February?
That is a possibility. It all depends on what they present in the development agreement. Until we see those details and until we see the plans that they're proposing, because the plans will be somewhat slightly different from what was discussed in the stability agreement, because now they're putting the details, the pen to paper in terms of their architecturals and whatnot. There might be a need for some changes here and there, and until we actually see those details or those potential changes, we won't really know how much time we need to actually process the development agreement. But if we add in a little buffer in there, best case scenario, like I said, would probably be February.
Okay, thank you. And everybody that's watching online and the audience, I know we want this to happen as quick as possible, but remember, that's been there for 17 years. So we're ticking along, we're trying to move the best we can to move this forward, but please have patience with us. Stuart, John, everyone's trying to do the best job that they can, to get this accomplished, so.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
When does the 120-day clock start ticking?
When both the comprehensive plan amendment and the development agreement is adopted, and that's the reason why we want to adopt the comp plan amendment as quickly as possible and the development agreement as quickly as possible.
And with regard to these two comments, is there any difference in timeline if we ignore them or try to incorporate them?
So, unfortunately, if we would try to make the map amendment adoption, we would have to go back to the Planning and Zoning Board, because it's a different process when you make a map amendment, unfortunately. So, in my mind, if we go ahead and adopt the comprehensive plan amendment, which is currently consistent with the stipulated agreement, and the state is not objecting to that, in my mind, I think the best thing to do with the comprehensive plan amendment is to just go forward and move it and adopt it. But that's my opinion. The city attorney and obviously the applicant might have a different opinion.
Is that your opinion?
Yeah, and that's what we'll discuss tomorrow when the applicant's comfortable with that.
But incorporating the comments could cause a delay?
If we hold off on the adopting the comp plan amendment until we do that, yes. We could always come back and adopt the recommendations after the fact, which is to say, we don't have to wait on the development agreement for us to adopt the recommended changes. Yeah. And we're going to clarify that with DO tomorrow to make sure there's no problem with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
And, thank you, Attorney Carey. So next we'll move on to our city manager's report. What do you have for us, Mr. Booker?
Madam Mayor, thank you. If Stuart would stand again. City Planner Stuart Cruz has been promoted to Deputy Director of Community Services, and he will continue to
Congratulations.
That Stuart has done over the years for us, and we're extremely grateful, and we're glad you stuck around all those years, Stuart.
Thank you.
I hope you have many more.
Thank you.
As you know, both Brian Edwards and Brett Hyatt are in the FRS drop program. If they stay until their planned retirement deadlines, they will retire in May and June respectively. The assistant city manager and I have been planning and continue to plan a smooth transition. And we've included Stuart in some of those talks as well as Fred and Brian. Veterans Day. Recently, the Volusia County Council agreed to consider adding Veterans Day as an official holiday for county employees next year.
Great.
As a city that has a number of veterans and military families, I suggest that DBS City Council also consider doing the same. And you could do that as part of the budget adoption, so we can plan for that holiday if you so wish to do that.
Okay. I had one other question. Sure. Yesterday, you and I were at the roundtable meeting, not a question, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about this. So we had Adam Heath from the county talk about pet licensing. So I don't think we need to review it today, but I'd like council to give our approval for Mike to go forward and check on this. My understanding is it would not cost the city anything.
That's what I understood.
Okay, a pet owner, it would cost them very little, and if it included a microchip, then they could immediately get that pet back to them. And I don't think we have much problem with stray animals in, I'm looking at the chief or captain.
That's in most cities.
Okay, but anyway, so then that would take care of that too, so. Do I hear a consensus that we can ask our city manager to go forward? And this would be in conjunction with all of Volusia County. And I think it's going to be on their next meeting, is that correct?
And this would be like a resolution, I assume, in support of the countywide licensing program?
Correct.
Sorry,
Correct.
we can do that.
Okay. Do I hear any objection on that?
Does this apply to, what animals does it apply to?
Cats and dogs.
But whether they're stray or owned?
Correct.
Thanks.
Correct.
Well, if the county passes an ordinance, then we would have to, as a citizen of the county, would have to abide by it anyway. Or do we have to pass our own city ordinance to?
No, we have to abide by it anyway. I think the county's just looking more for support from the city.
Ahead of time.
Right.
I don't know if my dog will get a license, but
And it was relatively cheap. Was it $3 a year and $10 for 3 years?
Yeah, and if the vets do it, and they're doing a spay and neuter or some other procedure along the same lines, I think it's even a little bit better deal.
Right, okay, so we'll look into it a little bit more, but it sounded like, Mike and I had a brief discussion about it, sounded like something that would, so. Okay, if there's no other questions from for our city manager? Okay, so we'll move on to old business now.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
my computer is not working. Can I ask you to take a 2-minute timeout while I reboot?
Certainly, okay, all right, thank you. All right, so 2-minute recess.
Stuart, see if will you see if that microphone is on?
Carolyn and Bill, can I ask you, can you hear any better in the back now? Okay.
It wouldn't let me take
It was, okay, I thought it was. I could hear you, but I wasn't
They get in touch with you?
Called me,
hearing you.
had a nice chat.
Maybe your name. Well, actually, two. And hopefully, one of the two got to me. I thought, I'm not paying.
you know what I'm saying?
You're welcome.
No, I'm smoking
Very informative about it.
We can work there.
Yeah, and this is something that
It's called, yeah, Debonair, no, it's not a Fuente. Debonair, it's called
Who's
Target.
Okay, I've been informed that Sherry is okay, so we'll continue. Okay, we're back in session. Okay, so we're on to ordinance 2021-13, and this was on the agenda last time. Our attorney had asked us to hold it till December, but I believe one council member wanted it back on in November, but we are not ready for this quite yet. So we're going to go back to a time certain date of the first meeting in December, because we will not have another one in November. Attorney Carey, do you need to read anything, or do you need to read the ordinance? We've done this several times, but.
You just need the consent of the council to
I
move
move-
it to a date certain.
I move we continue it to first meeting in December.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
If not, take a vote, please, Sherry.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzalone?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Okay, next we are going to go on to ordinance 2021-14. Can you read that for us, please, Attorney Carey?
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2021-14, an ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach, Shores, Florida, relating to mobile food vending vehicles, amending the Code of Ordinances, Appendix T, Land Development Code, by amending Chapter 2 entitled Definitions to provide a definition of mobile food vehicle, amending Chapter 14 entitled Zoning Regulations to provide for mobile food vehicles on certain properties within city limits, providing for enforcement and penalties, providing for a savings provision, providing for codification, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Thank you. And because this is a second reading and is a public hearing, do I have any comments from anyone in the audience? Okay, if not, do I hear a motion to accept?
I move we approve 2021-14.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make some comments, please.
All right.
So let me say at the outset, I have no problem with the food trucks at construction sites. My concern is that we're creating a group of haves, those businesses with an existing development agreement who meet the criteria for having a food truck, and a group of have-nots, those who don't. While I understand that the state has mandated that we allow food trucks My goal is to limit the number of haves in order to minimize the competitive disadvantage of the have-nots. Can staff tell us how many would qualify under this ordinance? How many would
Stuart,
qualify
we
to have
discussed
the
this
food
last time,
truck?
was there 6, but we kind of checked off, okay. Could you go over that, was it 6? Off the top of your head, can you go over those again, and then the feasibility that they would be using it?
Correct. So the mic keeps coming off. I apologize. So there's 2 construction sites right now that would qualify: the Oceans 25 construction site, and also the Max Daytona construction site. But
I think Vice Mayor is alluding more towards the other ones. Okay, so with the development agreement.
so the development agreement sites, commercial sites that would qualify, including the hotel site, would be Treasure Island. But we know their development agreement is coming up soon, so whenever that comes up, we could actually negotiate with them to not have that as part of their development. The other one is Publix, and we know that Publix probably will never ever have one there, or else they're going to be competing with their own deli. The other development site that has a development agreement is on Dunlawton Boulevard, the county beach depot, and more likely they will never have one there. And then the other one, of course, is 109 Dunlawton, where Casual Bird is.
So
So those are only 4 sites that would qualify with a development agreement.
So, and I know you have no crystal ball. From where I sit, the only one that probably would have it, and we know already that is Casual Bird.
Yes, that's the only one that I know that would have one probably within the next few months if this ordinance is approved as is.
And you seem to imply that you can answer my other question, that's would future development agreements automatically allow food trucks, or would we be able to not allow the food trucks in those future development
That
agreements?
is correct. As you know, the city council approves every development agreement that comes, that is approved by the city. And so through the negotiation process, the city council can say yea or nay.
And
I'm sorry, one.
finally, I see minimizing the number of places that qualify for food trucks under development agreements as the best way to protect the have-nots from being put in an unfair competitive disadvantage. If that does that, if this does that, then I'll vote yes. And it sounds like that we, pretty much, the people who can do it probably will not do it, and we should really be minimizing the number of people that can do it by approving this. Does that sound?
That is my opinion, and I'll leave the city attorney to chime in, but we try to do it in a way that would meet the Florida statutes and at the same time not let the cat out of the bag.
I'm satisfied, thank you.
Attorney Carey, do you have anything to add? I mean, Attorney Boyce last week told, you need to have, according to state statute, something. So as far as I'm concerned, we're really, really narrowing it in on what we have. But can you weigh in on this for us, please?
Yes, that's correct. Last session, there was a bill that was passed that prohibits cities from completely excluding food trucks from their city. But it did allow the city to regulate food trucks based on location. It also doesn't allow us to use any licensing scheme or other system. So essentially, you're left to regulate them through the zoning code. Without being able to completely exclude them, I think the planning staff has gone out of its way to make it as, I don't want to say restrictive as possible, but to make it reasonable, but also not open the floodgates.
I'm satisfied, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vice Mayor. Okay, any other discussion? I think Councilman Frizzalone, you had a point you wanted to make.
I just a quick point, to echo what the mayor's saying and our attorneys. I mean, we have to do this. And we have a city staff that's got 25 years. The gentleman to my left, City Manager Booker, I'm rounding up. You've got 30 years here. We've got Fred Hyatt and with another 40 years in Kurt. I mean, it's 100 years worth of experience. I mean, I really feel like if you feel that we have put the most constrictive possible ways on this, then, I can't see how we wouldn't back you. That's my.
Any other comment? If not, Sherry, can you take a vote on this, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzalone?
Yes.
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go on to new business, and the first thing is ordinance 2021-15. And Stuart, are most of these that we're going to go over right now are just well, let's go over the first one too, if you can explain it, and then I'll have,
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. The first ordinance 2021-15, is a formality. It assigns the future land use of residential low intensity to the property that we recently annexed, the property at 104 Broad Avenue. The application was made by Ms. Heather Roberts, who's here in the audience tonight. And this is just a formality. Anytime we annex a property into the city, we're required under state law to basically assign a future land use map classification and a zoning designation. If not, the city cannot apply the land development regulations, zoning codes, and things of that nature, code enforcement and things of that nature onto the property. So it's only a formality that we typically have to go through.
okay, thank you. And I probably put the cart before the horse. Can you read the ordinance for us, please, Attorney Carey?
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance number 15. An ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the City of Daytona Beach Shores comprehensive plan, amending Chapter 1, future land use element by amending map L4 entitled Generalized Future Land Use Map 2030, assigning the residential low-intensity future land use designation to annex single-family residential property generally located at 104 Broad Avenue, short tax parcel ID 5335-0305-0240, providing for implementing actions, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, and providing for an effective date. And this is not a public hearing.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept?
I move to approve the ordinance 21-15.
Second.
That's 15.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Okay, if not, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Plius?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Okay, Attorney Carey, can you read ordinance 2021-16 to us, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2021-16, an ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the City of Daytona Beach Shores comprehensive plan, amending Chapter 1, future land use element by amending map L4 entitled Generalized Land Use Map 2030, assigning the tourist-oriented commercial future land use designation to vacant property generally located at 131 Glen Myra Avenue, short tax parcel ID 5335-0106-0400, providing for implementing actions, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, and providing an effective date. And this is not a public hearing.
Thank you. Same thing here, formality.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The only difference I would make is that this property, instead of being assigned a residential land use, it would be assigned a tourist commercial land use, or tourist-oriented commercial land use. Staff did an analysis, as we typically do for every comprehensive plan amendment, and there is an increase in terms of capacity that would be required or capacity that would be utilized as a result of the change. But that increase in capacity demanded is what we call de minimis, meaning it's very, very minimal. This property was actually annexed into the shores some time ago. It was rezoned, but the future land use map amendment was never assigned, so the zoning technically isn't effective until we do the future land use. This property is actually owned by Dr. Doug Dennison and his wife Tracy. And so they've owned property here in the shores for some time, and they own the adjacent properties to the east of this, and so it's just a formality that would allow them to essentially have the same future land use and zoning for the entire property.
Okay, thank you.
I move we approve 2021-16.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this ordinance? Okay, if not, Sherry, can you take a roll on this one, please?
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Plius?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we'll go on to ordinance 2021-17. Again, Attorney Carey, can you read that ordinance to us, please?
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance number 2021-17, an ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, assigning the RSF2 urban single-family residential detached district zoning classification to annex single-family residential property generally located at 104 Broad Avenue, short tax parcel ID 5335-0305-0240, providing modification to the official zoning map, providing for implementing administrative actions, providing for non-codification, providing for an effective date, and this is not a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. And this is, again, a formality based on
Correct.
A.
Correct. 104 Broad Avenue. The first one was the future land use map, and this one is the zoning map.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move to accept the ordinance 2021-17.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Jerry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Thank you. All right, next we'll go on to council comments. I have quite a few this evening, so the majority of the meeting will be taken up by that. First of all, last Saturday, I attended a breast cancer awareness, and the sponsor of this was our own councilman / attorney, Michael Politis. Michael, thank you very, very much. It was the first one I participated in. I understand previous ones were a lot bigger than this. Cindy Lane from our staff invited me, and it was such a rewarding experience. And Michael did an excellent job. Your handouts were the best of any booth there, so thank you very much. But again, just thank you and your staff for everything that you did on that. Really appreciate it. Next, if our Recreation Director could come up. We have quite a few events in the before we have our next City Council meeting, and I want to make sure that we don't miss anything. She's done a wonderful job with these events. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. So tomorrow morning, of course, we've got coffee with the mayor, and our own Public Safety Director, Dubinsky, and Captain Fowler will be our guests, along with Assistant City Manager Kurt Swartzlander. He'll be talking about the taxes that are coming out that we're receiving right now. Friday, of course, since we canceled last Friday, will be our food trucks. Ours provided by Flagler Tavern in New Smyrna, and music by Empire. We're going to have, looks like 13 trucks, not 14, because one couldn't make it. So, and then Saturday, December 4th is our Christmas parade at 2 p.m. And at 3:30, we'll have a few food trucks on the south parking lot in front of the tennis courts. And then that starts at 3:30. The Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra starts at 4:30. And then the tree lighting will be around 5:40, 5:45. And then December 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. is our Community Appreciation Day, where city staff will be cooking up a storm of hamburgers and hot dogs, and we'll have some photo ops out on the lawn, and Santa will be there, and it'll be a good time. Saturday, January 8th, we'll have from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. our Better Life Business Expo, where we're going to have, of course, our Shores businesses and other businesses through our chamber. We already have 5 businesses from the Shores that have already registered. So we're going to have up to 62 booths. That'll be in our center here and outside also. So, and then starting in February, we're going to have a fundraiser, our casino night fundraiser, to raise funds for our community foundation for plans for next year.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a grand marshal for our parade?
We do.
Okay, and who is that?
Not only than our own city manager, Mr. Booker.
Okay, great.
All right.
That's great. We're excited about that.
Our city float will be carrying the grand marshal.
And if I can share too, as on a personal plug, we're going to be lighting the tree about 15 minutes early this year because I have been asked, every year the Nutcracker puts on an event and asks a city official to participate in the Nutcracker. So I will be the mayor in the Nutcracker, and I need to be there at 7. So I have to get out of here early, get dressed, and so anyway. But I was glad Nancy and I were negotiating the time, and I said, but Nancy, it'll be a time change, it'll be fine. So anyway, somewhere around 5:30, 5:45, we will be lighting the tree. So thank you for all those wonderful events that we're going to have. We appreciate it. Life is better in the Shores. It's a great place to live. The last thing that I want to talk about, and Councilman Bryan, I guess I want to ask you a question of this as it relates to the TPO. Had a conversation with Vice Mayor or Mayor-elect Lois Perinsky from the Ponce Inlet. She was telling me that at the TPO they had discussed that Votran is suggesting or proposing to stop the Votran at Dunlawton.
I really don't know. I mean, they discussed it, but I can't say that it's likely to happen or not likely to happen.
Okay, so was it just a discussion? She seemed to think it was a little bit more than that, so what?
I took it as just a discussion.
Okay. Is there any way you can check on that
Yeah, I'll
and
check
get back to us? And then also, is there anything else going on in the TPO that we need to be aware of as it relates to our city?
I've sent out an email to a few people. If anybody has any suggestions that in terms of what they'd like to see in terms of a bike and or pedestrian path, or please let me know, because now's the time to get it started if it is something that we want to do.
Okay, and you'll check on that because I think that would be detrimental. I know there's a lot of hotel workers that use the Votran, so her understanding was it was going to stop at Dunlawton, so for us that would be Dunlawton all the way to our city limits that would not have Votran service, and she was especially concerned it meant all of Ponce Inlet would not have Votran.
Yeah, I'll check with them.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Councilman Politis, what do you have for us this evening?
Are we doing anything for Veterans Day as a city?
We are not, and what we always did, in City Manager Booker, if you can help me, we always picked Armed Forces Day to celebrate, but our Recreation Director said nothing on Veterans Day? I said, no, we can do Armed
I
Forces
was just curious.
Day.
I remember a couple of years ago, was that Armed Forces Day we did?
No, well, Armed Forces Day, we did it, but remember we had the great big dedication of our Veterans Park.
That's right.
It seemed like everybody was doing something on Veterans Day, and we were competing with other veteran organizations and things, so we decided to adopt Armed Forces Day as ours.
But we certainly can look at that, Councilman, for next year. Recognizing someone.
And then I noticed the park is getting towards its conclusion, the Edwin Peck Park that the county has created. Are they going to do a dedication, and are we going to be invited, I presume, to participate?
Yes, we were at the groundbreaking.
God bless him, he's still kicking. And so alert, and he's got it going on.
Is it 102 now?
Yeah.
So
I told him at his 100th birthday party that when I grew up, I wanted to be like him.
Anything else?
No, if I may, I've been asked by several folks, so we are having a grand opening for the park?
They will, yes, the county will.
We don't have the exact date yet because it's still up in the air when it will be done. You know what I was surprised about, Nancy, and it's just, I thought it was going to mimic Frank Rendon, that it'd have a playground. Doesn't look like a playground?
The playground's coming, it's not in yet.
Oh, there is a playground, okay. All right,
A smaller version.
okay, all right. Councilman Frizzlone, any other comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming out, and for everybody on the video. I really am absolutely delighted to see Assistant City Manager Kurt, who got his title, and now we have the deputy here, and Stuart. It's really nice to see loyalty and hard work rewarded. I mean, we all come, everybody on the diocese comes from corporations, and you plug, you put your nose to the grindstone, the years go by, and you move up the ranks, and it's just great to see so many of you now starting to move upwards and onwards. So my sincere appreciation and congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I have a couple of comments. Excuse me. First, I'd like to comment on the great call that our Recreation Director, Nancy Maddox, made on rescheduling the food truck and concert event, which was originally scheduled for last Friday. I think we can all recall how horrible the weather was at that time. It could have been a real disaster had she not taken action. She saw the forecast and took the initiative to reschedule it well ahead of time. I'm sure that involved a lot of work with 15 food trucks to deal with and a band. But she contacted them all, got it rescheduled, and I just want to give her a good attaboy. Great call, Nancy. Job well done.
Thank you.
Secondly, this Thursday is Veterans Day, as we've mentioned. I'd like to salute Ed Miller and the other veterans in the crowd now, and I want to thank you all for your service. And I wanted to just let you know that Publix is thanking veterans for their service by offering a 10% discount to veterans on that day. Showing your military paperwork or your driver's license with the veteran's indication is required to get the discount. So save up your shopping, go shopping on Veterans Day and get your 10% discount. Again, thanks to all the veterans for your service.
And we thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And well, not a veteran, but we thank City Manager's son too, that will be a veteran one day. Not soon enough, but
A Marine.
a Marine.
Marine, no less.
Councilman Bryan, what do you have for us?
I have a couple of things. With regard to the smoking bill, as you all know, it was filed. It's Senate Bill 224. It actually has now made it through the first committee.
I'm sorry, Councilman Bryan, they still can't hear you in the back.
Can't hear me? Senate Bill 224 made it through its first committee this week. Jennifer Bradley was the chair, and I sent her an email a few days before just thanking her for co-introducing the bill and for putting it on the agenda. Since she was a co-introducer, I was sure that it would pass once it got on the agenda, and it did pass 8-0. It still has two more committees/subcommittees to go through in the Senate, and it has on the House side, it's House Bill 105 that has not had any committees even scheduled yet for it. The next stop in the Senate is the chair's Jason Broder. He happens to be a cigar smoker, and last year he got cigars exempted. I don't know whether he's going to do the same thing this year or not. On the second item, Senator Wright, I've got handouts for just the council, and I'll send emails to everybody, including all the department heads, with this information and a couple other pieces of information.
Can I interrupt you before you go on to that? What Councilman Bryan is talking about is some of the bills that are going before our legislature. And so I am on the board of directors of the Volusia League of Cities, and they have somebody that's the head of advocacy, which would be Vice Mayor Lois Perinsky. So I'm going to have at our coffee with the mayor, have her come in and talk about, it's called Civics 101. And what that teaches you is what bills are going before the legislature and how you can get involved. So if there's a bill that's very, very passionate to you, she goes step by step how you can write letters. And let me tell you, like when the senators, we go before them as cities and try to talk about what we'd like to see passed, but it very, very much helps when the residents of Volusia County and the state of Florida do that. So again, mark your calendars. So the coffee with the mayor in January, Lois will be here. So some of these bills that a councilman is talking about, she'll talk to you about how you can get them pushed forward. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, thank you. Angie, if you could put up the first PDF, I would appreciate it. This first handout is what's called a memorial. We would call it a resolution, and it has been introduced by Senator Wright. It's Memorial 816. What I would like to do is put this on the agenda for the next council meeting, and if there are at least 3 people that want to support this memorial, that we pass a resolution supporting it. But for now, I just want to basically get everybody up to speed. There aren't very many words in this memorial, so I'm going to read it verbatim. And as I said, it was introduced by Senator Wright, actually just this past week. The title of it is A Memorial to the Congress of the United States, urging Congress to adopt legislation lowering the allowable ratio of sodium to potassium in processed and restaurant foods sold and consumed in the United States. And there are 4 whereas clauses. Whereas there is persuasive scientific evidence that a high ratio of sodium to potassium in the diet of most Americans predisposes them to stroke and heart disease and increases mortality rates. Whereas about 80% of the American sodium intake comes from processed and restaurant foods, with the average ratio of sodium to potassium in the American diet at approximately 10:7. Whereas the Food and Nutrition Board of the Institute of Medicine, now known as the Academy of Medicine, in 2005 recommended a ratio of sodium to potassium of approximately 1:3. Whereas a modest decrease in the sodium to potassium ratio in the nation's diet would result in a substantial improvement in the long-term health of millions of Americans, including a decline in deaths due to stroke and heart disease and a substantial increase in life expectancy. Now therefore be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Florida that the Congress of the United States is urged to adopt legislation lowering the allowable ratio in processed and restaurants foods sold and consumed in the United States. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of State dispatch copies of this memorial to the President of the United States, the President of the United States Senate, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, and each member of the Florida delegation to the United States Congress. If anybody has any questions, I have a couple more handouts on this part of it. I'd be happy to answer them. There's a lot of science. I wouldn't be surprised by, be convinced by these general statements, but there is a lot of scientific evidence behind them. This handout is up on the monitor now, and I'm just going to go over this very briefly.
Really? I mean, I respect your passion for this topic, but we are a city council. I mean, what more could we do other than support this Senate memorial? But for me to sit here and have you teach me about it, with no disrespect, I'm just not inclined to really want to listen to it. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but you know, let's bring up the Senate memorial at the next agenda item, since this is just comments. With all due respect.
Does anybody else want to hear anything more about it?
Is this the handout here, Councilman, that we can
Yes.
read? Okay.
I think what I'd like to do is read it. I think that it's obviously a good thing for our citizens, and if Tom Wright is, being who I am in terms of my political affiliation, I'm fine with it, but, I'd like to read it and see where we go from there.
For clarification, is it Tom Wright or another?
Tom Wright's the senator.
Is it Tom Wright from our district?
Yes. Well, I'll just make a very brief comment about that. There was a very recent large randomized controlled test that was done in China, involved 20,000 people. And this is what I handed out is the Cliff Notes version of that. It just was recently published in the New England Journal of Medicine. The last handout is just the first page of a document, a 5-page document that I will send to everybody, and it's basically gets into the details of scientific evidence.
But again, if I may, Richard, I can't speak for everybody up here, but I think I can speak for Councilman Politis because he went first. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't agree with your assessment that this is something that's important for our citizens. Let me finish, please. I don't think anybody agrees. Disagrees that smoking is harmful for your health. Sodium and potassium is harmful for your health. I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with that. But how do you see us helping that process?
Passing a resolution supporting the
I see. Okay, so
that's all.
Thank you.
I'm just giving a glimpse of the underlying evidence. All I'll say about this is that the Harvard School of Public Health is recognized as the best school of public health in the world. And the person that signed this is recognized as probably the most respected person in the field of nutrition and public health. And that's pretty much all I'll say about this. This is the first page of a document that I'll email to everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments?
I have one. I'd like to end on a little upbeat. So I'm sitting and I'm watching the football game the other night, and my wife all of a sudden comes up, and she never ever interrupts me. She's doing her own thing, but she decided to interrupt me. And I'm watching the game, and she's got her laptop and this huge picture, and she said, "You got to see this." And I'm like, "Okay." And there's Mayor Miller with Governor Ron DeSantis, and I'm like, I was like so smiling from ear to ear. I just wanted to take the time to thank you for all you're doing in support of the Republican Party, and I think it was just a great thing that what you're doing. So I just want to say it's a pleasant surprise. I didn't see it, but what a great picture.
I had dinner with him and 1,248 of our closest friends. Chris was there, Ed was there, Marilyn was there.
Marilyn, as
Jim.
well?
Yeah,
It's just, what a great picture.
thank you.
Did he take 1,248 pictures?
Yeah, no, he didn't take that many, but yes, it was a quaint little affair, right, Chris? Just a tiny little.
Hey, it was a
affair.
great
Yeah.
picture, that's all that matters.
Thank you, I appreciate that, thank you. Next, as always, even if you haven't filled out a form, I would like anyone that would like to talk on any topic, now is the time. We have Jim, another guest in the area, you can come up, Harley, Jim Cameron. Well, how'd we do?
Oh, I think you guys did great. It's so interesting for me coming to another city that's just a little bit smaller, but you guys are so much bigger because of all the neighboring cities that you guys have. So International Falls has 6,000 people, but with that being said, we have a county of 13,000 people. So everyone lives in our small community. I watch your council and I listen to the things that you guys are talking about. Annexation, it's a huge one that we're dealing with right now. The mayor having to be in the Nutcracker. I was mayor of Whoville 2 years ago. So we have so many things in common being so differently, so far away. I mean, from International Falls, Minnesota, Icebox of the Nation, and, you know, Daytona Beach Shores, life is better here. I don't know how you guys came up with that, because Icebox of the Nation, if we used it in conjunction, you guys would be bathtub of the United States. You guys got a lot of water. I just want to say thank you for your time and being able to watch another government body. Same things. Everything that you guys are going through are the same things that we're going through in Minnesota. We need to have a steward.
Oh, thanks, Jim.
No.
I didn't say this steward. I just said a steward. That's another thing that we're looking at. For the first time in our small community, we're getting a city planner. We haven't had that. We're having some weird growth because of COVID, as weird as that is. We struggle with being able to have our residents go to and from Canada. Just opened up on Monday, but there's some weird issues that we're still going through. I had a conversation with our Senator Klobuchar just yesterday on the phone, trying to figure out a way to get Canadians to be able to come back into the United States without having to take COVID precautions and tests to get back into their home country. So we're all the same, we're all different, but I just wanted to thank you guys for your time and allowing me to come in and watch.
Well, thank you, and thank you for vacationing in Daytona Beach Shores. Is this your first year vacationing
No,
here?
this is my 16th year.
Wow, okay.
But don't be telling everybody. It's deer season in Minnesota and I'm not a hunter, but everything really slows down. So I just wanted to come down here and so just
That's great, all right. Thank you, Mayor, thank you.
String it live. 17 next year. then.
Jim Cameron, if you would like to come up.
Too good, that's too funny.
And wait till you hear this introduction, this accent. You'll never forget his voice again as long as you live after you hear this. Go ahead, Jim.
I'm Jim Cameron. Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm Jim Cameron. Jim Cameron Consulting. Can't say chamber anymore, but not different from that world. But I did want to mention, on behalf of Chamber, I'm working closely with Sean Richmond, the new Director of Advocacy. Now, they are planning for Volusia Days at the Capitol. Now, you're talking about legislation at Tallahassee. Volusia Days at the Capitol will be Tuesday, January 25th, starting at noon with a lunch meeting. It'll go through Wednesday, January 26th. Now, we'll be meeting with different legislators and hearing different speakers and up there. So if you're interested in Tallahassee, and I've told Sean, I'm going to try to work with him to coordinate something with the Florida League of Cities up there, because I did that always when I was up there. And I think maybe some of y'all participated with that though. But so that'll be January 25th and 26th in Tallahassee.
Thank you very much, Jim.
And more details will be on the Chamber website there.
Great to have you here this evening. Thank you for visiting us.
Good to see you, Jim.
Always be with y'all.
Okay, if no other comments, then what items do we have for the next agenda? So we have the ordinance 2021-13, We're hoping that will be, but that will be on the agenda. Is there anything else that we need to bring up?
The resolution, Senator Wright's resolution.
Okay, the resolution, if you could add that too, please, Sherry. Okay, if there is nothing else,
By the way, somebody said that Jim is the only one that pronounces Jim with 3 syllables.
okay, thank you so much for coming. For those of you online, thank you very much